I was 25 years old, sitting in a coffee shop, staring at a number on my phone that did not feel real. $102,000. Net worth. Mine. And I had never once earned a six-figure salary in my life. A Federal Reserve study found that the median net worth for someone under 35 in the United States is just $39,000, which means most people my age were sitting at less than half of what I had built. And I was not lucky. I did not inherit anything. I did not work 80-hour weeks or start a business or stumble into some crypto windfall. Today I am breaking down the exact numbers, the exact decisions, and the exact sequence that got me there before my 26th birthday. Most conversations about money start with income, and the number everyone throws around is the median household income, around $74,000 a year before tax in the United States. That number is everywhere. Budget calculators use it. Politicians quote it. Financial articles treat it like a baseline for what a normal financial life looks like. But here is what that number hides. It is a household figure, sometimes two incomes, and it says absolutely nothing about what happens to the money after it arrives. I was earning $51,000 a year when I hit $100,000 in net worth, below the median household figure. Alone, no partner income, no side hustle turning into something significant, no windfall sitting in the background waiting to be counted. If your household earns anywhere near $74,000, you already have the raw material. The question is what you are building with it. Now I want to show you something that changed the way I thought about all of this. Because when I first started paying attention to money, I was obsessed with income. I thought the top 10% of earners had it figured out. I thought if I could just get to that level, everything would make sense. The top 10% individual income threshold in the United States sits at around $153,000. For a household, it is closer to $212,000. Picture a senior software engineer, or a nurse practitioner married to an accountant, or a mid-level manager who has been at the same company for 12 years and collected 3 solid promotions. These are not extraordinary people living extraordinary lives. They drive decent cars. They take real holidays. They have nice apartments or modest homes. And almost without exception, they feel average. A 2022 Edelman Financial Engine survey found that 40% of people earning over $100,000 say they live paycheck to paycheck. Top 10%. Still watching the account drain by the end of the month. I was not yet earning anything close to that when I built my first $100,000. Which told me that income was not actually the variable that mattered most. The top 5% sharpens that picture considerably. We are talking around $220,000 individually in the United States. Think of a consultant and a product manager under the same roof, a physician's assistant and a civil engineer. The combined income is genuinely substantial. The lifestyle is comfortable in ways that feel earned and real. But here is the thing I kept coming back to. The money still stops the day you do. Every dollar of that income is contingent on showing up. And a $220,000 salary in San Francisco, after state and federal tax and cost of living, can leave you with less actual breathing room than someone earning $90,000 in a mid-sized city in Ohio. Income at this level feels like wealth. Feeling and being are two completely different things. The top 1% sits at around $540,000 individually in the United States. A senior surgeon, an investment banker in a strong year, a tech executive with equity vesting on schedule. Real careers, not fantasies. And even here, even at this level, most people are still trading time for money. The Federal Reserve's own data shows the top 1% income threshold has risen nearly 20% since 2019, driven largely by competition in tech and finance. The bar keeps rising, the treadmill keeps accelerating. And the central question that was forming in my mind at 22, when I opened my first brokerage account with $400, was this. If income alone cannot do it, what actually builds lasting wealth? Now here is where it gets really interesting, and I want you to stay with me here, because this is the part most people never reach. Everything I just walked through, the income brackets, the thresholds, the salaries, that is all about what flows in. Wealth is not about inflow. Wealth is about what stays. The highest paid person you know is probably not the wealthiest person you know. I want you to sit with that for a second, because the next part of this is the piece that actually explains how I got to $100,000 on a $51,000 salary. And it has nothing to do with income. The Federal Reserve puts average United States household net worth at around $1.06 million. That number sounds genuinely promising until you realize the median, the real middle of the country, is closer to $192,000. A small number of extraordinarily wealthy households pull the average upward like a fishing hook, so $192,000 is the more honest picture of what most people actually have. And now peel it further. For most middle-income households, roughly 60 to 70% of that net worth is locked inside their home. Illiquid, inaccessible without selling or borrowing. Strip out home equity, and you are looking at liquid investable assets somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000 for the median household. That is decades of working life, reduced to a number a single medical emergency could erase. Net worth by age tells the real story. Under 35, the median sits at around $39,000. Ages 35 to 44, around $135,000. Ages 45 to 54, around $247,000. And the 55 to 64 bracket, people genuinely close to retirement, sitting at around $365,000 median. Now here is the example that stopped me cold when I first came across it. A retired school teacher never earned more than $55,000 in her peak year. Started contributing to a retirement account at 27 and never stopped. 35 years of index fund investing, compounding quietly in the background while she taught and graded and showed up every day. She retired with somewhere between $600,000 and $900,000 in investable assets, more than double the median for her age group. Not because she earned more, because she started something small at 27 and never looked back. That story is why I opened my account at 22 with $400 and set up a $50 monthly automatic transfer before I even knew what I was doing. Here is the frame I want you to consider that most people living in developed economies have genuinely never thought about. Credit Suisse's Global Wealth Report found that to rank in the top 50% of all adult wealth globally, you need a net worth of just $8,654. Own a car outright and have a few thousand in savings, and you may already be there. The top 10% of global wealth starts at around $100,000 in net worth, the exact number I hit at 25, and a number that in the United States is often described as a modest emergency fund. And roughly 55% of all adults worldwide have total net worth under $10,000. Everything they own minus everything they owe. Under $10,000. I am not saying this to produce complacency. I am saying it because when I understood where I actually stood relative to the entire world, not just my neighborhood, not just my social circle, not just the people I followed online, something shifted. The scarcity I felt was real. The story my brain was telling me about how far behind I was needed serious editing. And that is the part worth naming honestly. Because even with the data sitting right there, even knowing the numbers, the feeling of being financially behind is one of the most persistent feelings I have ever dealt with. And I think it is the same for most people. Your brain does not compare you to a subsistence farmer in rural Indonesia. It compares you to the people immediately around you. Psychologists call this reference group bias. You benchmark your position against your social circle. And your social circle, if you live in a developed country with a working income, tends to look pretty impressive from the outside. A friend buys a house and something in you registers, I must be falling behind. A colleague gets promoted and the same signal fires. Someone you went to university with posts a holiday that you could not currently afford, and the feeling lands like a quiet verdict on where you are. None of that is evidence of where you actually stand. It is evidence of who you have chosen, consciously or not, to measure yourself against. And the comparison game, played at the local level, is designed to have no winners. Lifestyle inflation did its work on me too in my early 20s. Every small raise I got in my first 2 years of working got absorbed almost immediately. A slightly better apartment, a nicer version of the same phone, restaurants that were a step up from where I used to go. None of it felt irresponsible. Every decision made sense in the moment. The problem was structural, not moral. I was letting the lifestyle grow to fill whatever was available. And as long as that pattern held, it did not matter how many raises were coming. The account would stay roughly flat. The thing that broke the pattern for me was not discipline in any dramatic sense. It was one decision, made quietly, in my first month of working. I set up an automatic transfer of $100 on every payday into a brokerage account invested in a total market index fund before I paid anything else. Before I looked at the balance with relief. Before my brain had a chance to allocate that money to anything. I moved it first. And then I lived on what remained. That one structural decision, not a budget, not a spreadsheet, not a set of rules I had to remember under pressure, is the single thing I point to when people ask me how I got to $100,000 by 25. The transfer automated the behavior. The index fund automated the growth. And the years did what years do when money is compounding quietly in the background, while life happens in the foreground. I increased the transfer amount every time my income went up, not the full raise, roughly half of it. The lifestyle still improved, just at half the rate of the income increase, and the gap between what I earned and what I spent, captured automatically and invested consistently, built the number I was staring at in that coffee shop. The practical sequence was not complicated. First, I captured the full employer match in my 401k, because a 50% match is a 50% return before the money is invested in anything, and not taking it is the single most expensive quiet mistake I see people make. Second, I maxed out a Roth IRA each year, $7,000 annually, growing completely tax-free, which across decades produces an outcome that is materially different from a taxable account. Third, everything beyond that went into a taxable brokerage account in a low-cost index fund with an expense ratio below 0.1%. Fidelity's Fevrox. Vanguard's VT. Simple, cheap, and backed by a century of data. I did not pick individual stocks. I did not try to time anything. I bought the whole market and left it alone. The sequence matters because the accounts have different tax treatments, and the order you fill them in changes how much of the compounding you actually keep at the end. But the sequence is secondary to the starting, because the biggest variable in everything I just described, bigger than the specific fund, bigger than the exact account type, bigger than the contribution amount, is time. A Bankrate analysis found that someone who invests $200 a month from age 22 to 65 at a 7% annual return ends up with approximately $760,000. The same person starting at 32 with the same $200 ends up with around $370,000. Same amount invested, same return, 10 years earlier. Almost $400,000 difference. That is not a small gap. That is the cost of waiting until things feel settled enough to start. I did not hit $100,000 because I was exceptional. I did not get lucky. I did not find a shortcut. I started at 22 with $400 and a $50 automatic transfer, and I never stopped. I increased the amount when I could. I left it alone when the market dropped, which it did, more than once, in ways that felt genuinely alarming in the moment and completely irrelevant in the long run. And I let the years do what the years do. The one thing, not a list, just one thing, is to set up the automatic transfer before this week ends, an amount small enough that it does not break anything, but large enough that you notice it is gone. Into an investment account, not a savings account. In a low-cost index fund. On payday. Before anything else. Because the version of your financial life that exists 10 years from now is not the result of dramatic decisions made in big moments. It is the compounded result of one small structural choice, made once and never reversed. So the question I want to leave you with is this. If the version of you that exists at 35 could send one message back to the version of you sitting here right now, what would that message actually say? And is there anything stopping you from acting on it today?